What's up guys, Jared here, Paintbrush Samurai. Today I'm going to give you the 3 ways to identify a non-artist. Alright, now there are probably a lot more than just 3, but these are just the 3 easiest ways. And the type of art form that I'm going to be talking about today is storytelling, my personal favorite, and really, my opinion, kind of the purpose of art in general, right? Movies, whether it be animation or live action, music, writing, fiction and non-fiction, to be honest, are all about telling a story. So I'm going to talk about 3 storytelling mistakes that I see over and over again in today's art form that I'm certainly going to do my part to try and address. Alright? Number 1. The first thing is probably the absolute worst one too. So these aren't in any particular order, but the first one is probably the worst. It's my least favorite thing that I see in a story. I see this in a storyline and the whole story falls completely flat for me, serves absolutely no purpose, and I hate it. And that one is when you have a ridiculously strong female character that makes no logical sense at all. Alright? Now, I have no problem with strong female characters, okay, but what bothers me is when there is a female warrior and she carries a bigger sword than all of the male warriors, and she's way more physically dominating and physically stronger than all the other characters in the show. There's nothing realistic about that. Alright? So it really bothers me. Even if it's a work of fiction, I understand that you're supposed to bend the rules of reality. But you still need some piece of reality, otherwise the content no longer becomes relatable. The only thing that this relates to is women's vanity. And it's really prominent in a lot of art today. A lot of movies, a lot of shows. A ridiculously strong female character who carries a huge sword that her tiny framed body would no way be able to handle. Alright? Now, is it possible for a woman to be a good fighter? Absolutely. Because I know somebody's going to be like, oh, look at the UFC. They got like women who could kick tons of guys' asses. And that is true. However, the women in the UFC cannot fight the men in the heavyweight division from the UFC. That's what I have a problem with in shows, is when little tiny girls are kicking giant man's asses. Not because I have a problem with it on a fundamental level, it's just not realistic and therefore becomes really boring and it's way too popular and cliche. Alright, now this is obviously most popular in animation because it's very hard to get that on an actual camera, a small girl kicking a big dude's ass. But what they do have in live action films is equally as annoying. And what they do is they have women be mentally superior to men with absolutely no training or effort or really any justification at all. I'm sure you guys probably saw the Star Wars movie, Force Awakens, right? It's a pretty good movie. One of the things that bothered me about it is the main girl is ridiculously good at everything that she does without any explanation or justification. Why? Now I know it's like, oh, she's going to be the daughter of somebody awesome or whatever, but that's still no justification of her abilities to do things. For example, there's a scene in the show when she helps Han Solo fix the Millennium Falcon when he is unable to. Think about that. Han Solo been flying the Millennium Falcon for decades. He's an extremely experienced pilot. He has been flying around the universe, escaping the clutches of evil again and again. I'm sure his ship is broken tons of times. He's had to fix it. And something goes wrong. He's not able to fix it. She comes onto the ship and fixes it within like 10 seconds. Like, it's just like, oh, yeah, there you go. Boom. Stops beeping or whatever. That doesn't happen. Alright, that doesn't happen in real life for women or men. Alright, I can't go into an engineer's office and say, oh wow, you just got to do this. And he's like, wow, thanks, man. No, I know nothing about engineering, so it's just not realistic. Not to mention she like duels lightsabers with like the big villain who's been training his entire life in the dark forces and sword training, and she just picks up a lightsaber and easily outduels him, no problem. That is just totally unrealistic, and it's really boring. It's totally unrelatable, unless you're a woman with a serious misdirection about your importance in the world. So that's the biggest way to spot a non-artist. As soon as they start doing this in their storyline, you know that it's just a virtue signaling dumbass who is just trying to appeal to women's vanity. Now, the second one is kind of similar, but it applies more to both men and women. And it is really when a character, whether he be a main character or not, is, again, super awesome for the sake of only nothing. Like, he's just super unique. He's born with an innate gift. He's exceptional because nothing. Because nothing. He's just exceptional right away. He's the best. He's the strongest. He's the fastest. Whatever it is that he's trying to be. Without any training or effort. This, to me, is no longer a story. There's no drama in it. And not to mention, again, it's just unrelatable. Nobody can relate to just being born the best. Anybody who is the best worked extremely hard to get there. So to try to summarize being the best as simple as some people are born this way, or really what the message is, everyone is born this way. Everyone is a special, unique snowflake. And in reality, that's just not the case. Not everybody is going to be a rock star. Not everybody is that awesome. Not everybody can sing like Michael Jackson. But that's totally okay, right? But the problem is when you have storylines that are centered around everybody is unique, everybody is the best, everybody is awesome, everybody's a rock star. Well, this kind of fuels a society that somewhat believes this. Maybe not on a surface level, but on a subconscious level. That says, well, I don't have to work hard because I'm the best. This is why I'm a really big fan of Japanese animation, is because they have like the total opposite problem. Everything's like, oh man, I can't lift this pin up. I'm gonna go train for 1,000 hours in 10 times gravity with a rock strapped to my body so that I can lift this pin better than anybody. And then the whole storyline follows the training instead of like the rock lifting. This is really this kind of mistake is really prevalent, I feel like, in a lot of superhero movies. Superhero movies fall really flat and are really boring for me personally because they tend to focus more around action. Oh, and that's it. Just action. I mean, there's really no development of characters usually, which there can be no development of the characters because characters are facing no real hardships, right? I mean, if you're just super strong and powerful, the kind of hardships you face are going to be different than somebody who's coming all the way from the bottom level and rising to the top. It's a lot more interesting to see somebody who's a failure become a success than someone who's just like already a success just continue to be a success. You know, you never really question whether or not the superhero is going to win the fight. He just does because he's super powerful. So that is the second example of a really weak storyteller. Alright, somebody who's continuing to push the current social agenda. The third way to identify a non-artist via their story is if their story has no philosophical purpose. Okay, for me, this is mostly prevalent in like indie films that I watch. Alright, or shows that sometimes just try to be creative by just being different but not really serving a purpose, right? So like, it's hard for me to think of an example right now, but I'll just give you like a fake example, right? You might watch a film that's about like a depressed teenager. And it does a really great job of expressing the life of of a depressed teenager. But at the end of the movie, you kind of just stop and go, yeah, I just feel like shit now. Like I didn't really learn anything from that movie. Like I just like, yeah, that's what it's like to be a depressed teenager. That sucks. And that's it. There's a lot of weird movies out nowadays that come out, and you know, it's almost worse than having a negative agenda. They just have no agenda. Like they're just trying to be different, or they're just trying to be cool, but they don't have a purpose behind them. Right? I mean, it's like if I was going to tell you a really good anecdote, but it served nothing to further along the conversation. It was just a completely random story. It's like, what purpose is this really serving? You know, I personally feel that the purpose of art is a way to spread philosophy and philosophical content to a broader mass of people who may be not as interested in studying those philosophy textbooks or just engaging in those deep, thought-provoking conversations, or they need a way, a creative way to express or to absorb, really, philosophical content. Maybe they're just not able to take philosophical content at face value because it disagrees with their own current philosophical values. But when you see something in a little bit more creative light, sometimes it weakens your defenses and you're able to think with an open mind. And you get attached to characters, and then those characters have opposing philosophical values than you, and then you start to be more accepting of it because you trust this character more than you do random people. Right? So I always like good stories that make me feel good. And I don't mean that in like a they boost my ego type of way, you know, they appeal to my vanity, just in a way that has me think at the end. I want to see a movie, and at the end I want to go, that was really thought-provoking entertainment right there. You know, like if you read like Shakespeare, for example, all his stuff's still being studied today because he has core fundamental issues that are very controversial and interesting. So people are still talking about his content, you know. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, by the way, two things real quick. If you want an example of the first one that I gave you about women, all right, if you want a good example, one that's like not actually trash, of how to convey a strong woman who's not just ridiculously OP for no reason, or ridiculously smart despite like never studying, or being really good at something that is like totally unrelated to what she's been doing her entire life, check out Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind by Hayao Miyazaki. That movie, man, it just epitomizes what an amazing girl should be. Main character is Nausicaa, and she's just brilliant. She actually possesses qualities that a real woman could possess. And it's way more intriguing than women who just possess qualities that are totally unrealistic for them to possess. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense for the girl to be the toughest guy on the block. Makes way more sense for her to show, like in Nausicaa, a level of compassion that is more than the rest of her village folk people. That's not that unrealistic. Wow, a girl with a lot of compassion. What a surprise. No, that's brilliant. She's still strong, and she's mentally tough as nails. Women can be tough as nails mentally. She's physically strong. She knows how to use a sword, but she's not chopping ogres' heads off, you know? Makes sense. The second thing is, there is a really good video that I recently watched called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Artists. Not as related to storytelling, but if you want to help yourself on the way to not be a non-artist like all the people I'm talking about in this video, you should check it out. I'll try and put a link in the description for you. Very cool video. Alright, this video is running long, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you now know how to identify a non-artist next time you watch a movie, read a book, read a comic, read a manga, whatever the hell you're into. I'm Jared, Paintbrush Samurai.